Hey everyone.
Hey guys.
Welcome to another Travel Therapy Mentor live video. Tonight we're going to be talking about the end of the year coming up and how to approach the end of the year, planning for holidays, planning for the new year with travel contracts. A lot of people that reach out to us want to start traveling right after the holidays, and because of that, it's a very difficult time to start traveling. A lot of people want to take time off for the holidays, which is understandable. But then that makes you less competitive for some travel contracts. So we're going to talk a little bit about navigating that situation. So Whitney's going to introduce us. I'm going to get this video shared in a couple groups.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Whitney Aiken.
I'm Jared Kazaza.
And we are both traveling doctors of physical therapy. As many of you guys may have known and joined in with our videos in the past, we've been traveling PTs for about 5 years. And each week we bring you some different information and topics about travel therapy. So as we are nearing the end of 2020, which sounds crazy to say, we thought it would be a pertinent time to discuss planning your contracts around the holidays, whether or not it's a good idea to ask off, have time off requests for the holidays coming up, and talking about starting contracts after January the 1st. So we'll get into the topic here in just a minute. Jared's going to share our video in a couple of groups so that more people can join in with us live. I see that a few of you guys are joining in with us live tonight. Thank you for joining. If you are watching live, we'd love if you would comment below and let us know who you are. Are you a current travel therapist? Are you someone who's thinking about starting travel therapy? Are you a student? And let us know if you're getting ready to start a contract, if you're looking for one right now, like as soon as possible before the end of 2020, or if you're someone who's thinking about getting started early 2021. Let us know in the comments. Give us a thumbs up if you are watching and if you're getting any value out of this video. And even if you're watching later on the replay or listening later on our podcast, we'd love if you'd say hello, give us a thumbs up, hashtag Team Replay. Hey Melissa, hi Anzio, hey Andrea, hey Allie, thank you for joining us. So Jared is just going to, again, get our video shared in a couple of groups so that more people can join in live. Yeah, this is crazy that it seems like we're just now almost into 2021. That just sounds weird to say. I know that a lot of us are looking forward to 2020 ending, but this year in some ways has flown by. I don't know what you guys think, if it's flown by or it's taken forever, but to me it just seems crazy that it's almost November. So in no time we'll have Thanksgiving and then some of the religious holidays in December and then the new year in 2021. So there's just a lot coming up. Who knows what the holidays are going to look like this year for all of us. And, with the job market, who knows what's to come. And that's some of, the insight that we're going to give you tonight, that we're not really sure what is to come as we get into 2021 with the job market. But it is starting to pick up slightly, which is good news. We have been seeing more travel therapy jobs lately over the past couple weeks. So we really hope that it'll continue to get better into 2021, but time will definitely tell. Hey Lauren, hey Dee. Michael says, I'm a student hoping to finish around New Year and start traveling soon after. Hey Michael, thank you for joining us. Yeah, this information is definitely for you. It's definitely for the students who are getting ready to graduate, take boards, think about jumping into travel therapy. It's for our current travelers who are trying to strategize when their current contract ends, jumping into the next contract, and it's for our current clinicians who are finishing up a job. Maybe they're thinking about putting in their notice and finally getting into travel therapy. And I think that's a lot of the people who think, well, might as well wait till after the holidays to start this new adventure. Of course, the beginning of the year seems like a great time to start your new adventure. And in some ways it is, but in some ways it's challenging. And we're going to get into talking about why that is. Jared's just wrapping up here, getting this shared in a couple of groups. So again, if you are joining in live, please leave us a comment and give us a thumbs up on the video. So, like I mentioned, the job market is starting to pick up slightly, which is good news, but it's definitely still down significantly from where it has been in past years. So it continues to be a difficult job market for folks that have not as much experience. So our new grads, it continues to be a tough job market for you. For those that only have experience maybe in like outpatient or like one very particular setting, it continues to be challenging for you because there's just not as many jobs across the board as there usually have been.
Yeah, it's probably been a 5 to 10% increase in the number of jobs over the last probably 4 or 5 months now. So it's gradually coming back, but that's starting from a very low base in March and April when things really dropped by about 90%. So we're still down quite a bit, but things are starting to get better, which is a good thing. Going into the holidays, though, this is going to be a pretty uncertain time. The holidays in the beginning of the year are always difficult for travelers, and a lot of travelers choose to start right at the beginning of the year because they want to take time off. For the holidays, spend time at home. They think, okay, I'll get a fresh start at the beginning of the year. Unfortunately, since so many people want to do that, it makes finding jobs really difficult at the beginning of the year. And when you take the difficulty of finding jobs in the beginning of the year combined with the fact that we're already in a lower job market, it can be a really difficult time. And we're anticipating it's going to be pretty tough for travelers at the beginning of 2021.
Yeah, so there's a lot to consider now as we approach the end of the year and timing and planning and strategizing for your contracts. In the past, we've always seen what we kind of call the January job lull, where it's a lot harder to find jobs in January because of the oversaturation of people looking. So as I mentioned, maybe some current travelers decide to take off for the holidays. You know, their last contract ends early to mid-December and they say, oh, I'll just take off a few weeks and I'll pick up a new contract. You know, they're a very experienced traveler and they're used to finding jobs, but they're suddenly hitting the reset button and now have a new date, whereas normally the dates might be staggered, that a bunch of travelers were looking for jobs, but now suddenly there's a restart button and a lot of them are looking at the same exact time, January 2nd. And then on top of that, you have students that just graduated in December, took their boards, and now they're ready to jump into the job market January 2nd. And then you have our permanent experienced therapists who kind of get the same idea. They're like, oh, I'll just put in my notice around the end of the year and then start a new thing at the beginning of the year. So we get this oversaturation of people looking and either maybe the same amount of jobs or sometimes slightly less jobs in January.
Yeah, our first few years, we actually didn't have any trouble with this. We were lucky. I think we took contracts. We were taking a lot of back-to-back contracts. We were working through the holidays a lot of times. And there was times when we specifically wanted to work through the holidays, either for holiday pay or sometimes to get those days off. And some travel contracts are set up where you still will get paid even if you have the time off for holidays. So we were, some of our contracts, we were hoping for that. But it wasn't until 2018 when we wanted to start in the beginning of the year. I don't know why I have so much trouble saying beginning. But that's when we realized that it was really difficult. We tried from the beginning of January all the way until like mid-February before we found contracts. So that was a really tough time. And then we realized, you know, this is normal for a lot of people to have trouble right now. It's just that we've gotten lucky for our first few years of traveling.
Yeah, so that kind of explains a little bit of why, you know, there might be this oversaturation of people looking and some difficulty at that time. Again, we're going to see whether or not that's the case in 2021. Who knows? Maybe it won't be, but we just want to talk a little bit about some strategies and how you guys can hopefully avoid this. So first, let's talk about asking off for the holidays. So say that you're getting ready to start a contract in October, November, December, and you want to maybe ask off for the holidays. So some reasons why this might not work out well for you and might not be okay are that the facilities really need staffing during the holidays because they might already have their permanent therapists that work at those facilities who have time off requests that could have been asked off 6 months ago, 9 months ago, a year ago. So they might really need coverage. And you guys have to think that a travel therapist, we're there for a reason. They bring in a travel therapist to help staff in a time where they're understaffed.
Yeah, so a lot of times these permanent therapists have already asked for time off. The facility wants to count on a traveler to be there to pick up the slack, and they don't want to work around your time off request when everyone else also wants time off. That's not always the case. There are situations where you can ask for those days off and it's not a big deal. But in general, a facility, if they have two candidates and one wants to ask off for Thanksgiving and Christmas and the other one doesn't, they're going to go with the person that's less hassle. They're going to go with the person that doesn't need time off.
Yeah, it's really important to kind of know when to pick your battles. And that's what we're going to talk about with our strategies here. Are maybe you really want the holidays off, but you also have to know when you're in a good position to ask for that or not. There could be some contracts where it would be no problem. I know there's a lot of people that are able to secure contracts and get that time off request, but you just need to take into account how difficult your job search has been in general and, you know, how competitive you are for that position. If it's a position where you know it's already kind of a reach for you to get it, maybe you're a new grad, maybe you don't have experience in that setting, maybe you're asking for them to wait for you to get the license. You can't be requesting too many things or else they're probably going to pass you over for a different candidate. So what I want you to think about here with the strategies are, consider the setting into which you're applying for a job. So for example, if it was an outpatient clinic, a private practice, there's probably no need for you to request time off for the holidays at all, because they're most likely going to have their doors closed to the clinic that day anyway.
Yeah, there are almost no outpatient clinics that are open on holidays, because if they were, they wouldn't have anybody scheduled anyway. And usually they're closed. Usually it's a really not very busy time around holidays in general for outpatient clinics.
Mm-hmm. So this year, I guess I'd have to look and see. Obviously, Thanksgiving's always on a Thursday, and sometimes those clinics are closed both Thursday, Friday. So you might want to ask that during your interview just to get a feel for it. But if you can try to, see if you can avoid having to ask off for that and make it sound like you're being difficult, whereas you can just kind of bank on getting it off anyway, that's super helpful. Now, let me look and see when, I'll say Christmas, for example. I know a lot of people celebrate Christmas.
Christmas is on a Friday this year.
So that's really helpful, because Christmas Eve is on a Thursday and Christmas is on a Friday. So again, if you were in like an outpatient setting or a setting where they're going to be closed anyway, you can already pretty much guarantee you're going to have that Thursday, Friday, and make it a long weekend off without having to even ask. It is a little more tricky if holidays fall in the middle of the week and you were hoping to get the holiday and an extended weekend off. So those are just some things where, again, you have to kind of pick your battle and decide if it's worth it or not to ask off for that.
Yeah, home health is similar. Usually I don't think most therapists are working on holidays in home health, because patients don't want to really be seen during the holidays. I know there are some that do, but I think in general, Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, not a lot of patients are seen for home health on those days. But on the other side, acute care, skilled nursing, you're almost always going to be working holidays as a traveler unless you ask for those days off, or unless there's a situation where the facility might have to pay you more money to work on the holiday and they try to avoid that. Yeah,
so I think that, depending on how important it is to you to have the holidays off going into an interview, if you're kind of flexible and you don't, it's not a total deal breaker if you have it off, but you'd kind of like to have it off, see how the interview goes. If it goes well, you might just mention, hey, this contract would be running through the holidays. Is your facility going to be open on the holiday? Would you be expecting me to work on the holiday? And just get a feel for whether that would be a requirement, because you might be, worrying about nothing. Maybe they would say, no, we'd rather not pay you to work the holiday because we have to pay you extra. As a traveler, we'll just have our permanent staff cover those days, and in which case you can just be like, oh, wow, I didn't even have to ask for it off. I just have it off anyway.
Yeah, and that goes to another point. It's important to ask your recruiter, if you know that you're going to be taking a contract through holidays, how that works. If you're working on a holiday, are you getting paid time and a half? If you are getting paid time and a half, is that just time and a half of your hourly pay? Or is there a increased holiday rate? And that will vary by company.
Now, if it is very important to you that you have the holidays off, if that's a deal breaker for you, you really have to have it off. I would also encourage you to consider, maybe if your contract goes through a bunch of holidays, it goes all the way through November, December, January, and you've got several holidays in there, maybe just be selective about which one is the most important to you. So maybe you're like, well, it's okay if I can't go home for all the holidays, but if I could at least get off for one of them, then maybe you could be a little less picky by asking for just one of the holidays off instead of another one. And again, that extended weekend, if that's what you're needing there. And along with that, I would also keep in mind your setting, because for certain jobs, like for example, if it's an outpatient clinic and they only work Monday through Friday, you really only have to make sure that it says in your contract that you need off the Thursday and the Friday. But if you are working an inpatient contract, make sure that your recruiter puts in the contract that you need off the Thursday, the Friday, the Saturday, and the Sunday, because in some cases for inpatient settings, they might expect you to work a weekend. There might be some weekend rotations that are expected, like 1 or 2 a month, or they might try to get you to make up some of those days. So you want to make sure it's clearly stated in your contract if you are asking off certain days.
Yeah, and that's very common, and that's frustrating if you don't anticipate it. But a lot of contracts, say you're off Christmas Day, and that's a Friday, they might want you to work 4 10s early in the week to get all your hours in, or they might want you to work the Sunday before to make up the hours. And so, if you go into it knowing that's the case, then it's not a big deal. But if you're just expecting to get that day off and not have to make up those hours, then it can be frustrating. So go into it with as much knowledge as possible.
But in some cases, that could be something you could use to your advantage to also strategize, where if it's a facility that has flexible hours, so say if it's an outpatient clinic that does early morning and late afternoon appointments, where the clinic is open like 10 hours, but you're only usually working an 8-hour shift, or if it's an inpatient clinic, or if it's home health, sometimes you could say, well, I do need these days off, but I would be willing to make up the hours earlier in the week if that would work okay for you, so that you could still see 40 hours of patient care. So use that strategy if needed, to try to sell yourself a little bit in that circumstance if you are asking off. The other thing I want to mention is some people might choose, instead of asking off for the actual holiday on the actual day, if that's really tricky and your facility really needs you to work and it's interfering with you being able to get a contract, you could always consider celebrating the holiday a different time with your family.
Yeah, we've done this in the past. So there's been times when we miss Thanksgiving or something like that, and instead we'll just celebrate the weekend after, or maybe 2 weekends after. We'll plan to go home and have dinner with our family and everything, and that's really usually not a big deal.
It might work out better for the facility with their scheduling with their permanent staff, because maybe no one else is asking off for those arbitrary dates 2 weeks ahead or 2 weeks later. It might also work out well for you if, in terms of traffic, if you're driving, or plane tickets, if you're having to get plane tickets, because I know it can be really expensive to fly on the holidays, especially on those peak days like Fridays and Sundays on the weekends.
Something else you can consider is to try to get a contract closer to home. So that way you might be able to drive to and from your contract or to home on a holiday and not have to take as much time off. We've done that in the past for sure. We've taken contracts closer to home around the holidays, knowing that we'll be able to drive in just for a weekend. Maybe we're only 3 or 4 hours away, and it's really not a big deal compared to if we were halfway across the country. It would be a really big deal to get back in just for a weekend.
Absolutely. We've really taken advantage of that for like Thanksgivings, because we have worked places where they gave you off Thursday, but they didn't give you off Friday. And we didn't necessarily want to go out of our way to request Friday off. So we would just wait until Friday night, drive home, and then celebrate Thanksgiving late with our family. And same thing for a different holiday. You could use that strategy. But again, I just want to reiterate, it's really important that when you're requesting time off, whether it's for the holidays or it's for anything else that you might need, like a wedding or a vacation or something like that, you always want to just take into account your position that you stand in for negotiating. And we talked about this a few weeks ago in one of our videos about negotiating. If you know that you're already not that competitive for the job, if you know that the job market is already really difficult like it is right now, and you've been job searching for a long time, and you realize, this isn't working out, maybe I'm being too picky, those are the cases in which you really might not want to go out of your way to request the time off. You might just want to suck it up and not have to deal with that because you really need a job. Whereas if you are an experienced traveler, you're an experienced clinician, you've got multiple state licenses, you've got experience in multiple settings, you know that you can get any job that you want, then you can be a little more picky because you're willing to pass on that job. You might be firm in saying, I definitely need these dates off, no but ifs, ands, buts about it. I'm not going to take a contract unless they give me these days off. If that's the case and you're willing to just pass on a job if they won't give you those because you know there'll be another job waiting for you, go for it. But I think a lot of people right now, unfortunately this year, are not in that position of strength with their contract negotiations. So just take that in mind depending on who you are.
Yeah, that comes with experience. So there's a lot of new grads right now that are thinking about traveling either right before the holidays or right after the holidays. And in that situation with a tight job market, lots of people looking for jobs, you really have to be careful about asking for too much.
Yep. So that's a little bit about strategizing, come November, December, a lot of the holidays during that time. Let's talk a little bit about January. We mentioned as why that's bad timing, lots of people wanting to start after the holidays, new grads, current travelers, those that are leaving a permanent job. One other thing that I've heard from some of our recruiters in terms of the job market is sometimes they'll see a little dip in job advertisements right after the new year. There's a couple reasons. Maybe they already secured their needs in December and they have a traveler whose contract is already going through January 1st. Other times I've heard from some recruiters that facilities will still be working out their budgets for the year and they'll just be getting back from the holidays, so they may not have decided whether they're ready to advertise a job. I guess when they decide, they have these meetings and things at these facilities and they decide, okay, what are our staffing needs? We need to put out an advertisement for a traveler. Well, throughout the year, that might just happen normal Monday through Friday. Things are turning over, but maybe the people who are making the decisions have actually been on vacation for the holidays and come back January 2nd. They haven't really figured things out yet. So they're like, oh, we got a couple weeks. We'll figure out if we need a traveler a few weeks from now. So we've actually seen a reduction in jobs and an increase in demand. So those are some of the reasons why you might see a lull in January.
And then in addition to that, we, at least for us working in a lot of different outpatient clinics, we noticed that through the holidays, a lot of people fall off caseload and there's not as many evals, and usually there's a lot more cancellations and things like that going through the holidays, and some of that carries over into the new year before people start to get back in there and the caseload starts to pick back up. It's usually at least a few weeks after the new year that it seems like the caseloads are usually pretty light in outpatient clinics.
Yeah, we actually have experienced that a lot. When we had a job that ran through the holidays, we were like, oh yeah, we get a break now, because
we loved it.
We like had a lower caseload and it was super easy and it was just fun. Like people were bringing in, holiday treats, and you didn't have as many patients. It was more laid back. So if I was somebody looking from a staffing standpoint, I wouldn't necessarily be eager to hire somebody right at that time. But if you already have somebody on contract, you get the benefit of just kind of riding it out.
Yep.
So that's actually one of our strategies in terms of trying to game plan for that end of the year, beginning of the year. If you are a current traveler, we always encourage you to try to extend your contract through the new year if possible, so you can skip that beginning of January job lull. Try to have job security all the way through the middle or the end of January before you have to pick up your next contract.
Yeah, and like if this past year is any indication, that lull lasted really till probably mid-February before things started to pick back up, and then right then is when COVID really hurt the market. But it usually lasts for 4 to 6 weeks into the new year. So ideally have a job secured that you can extend, or have an assignment that you're starting in November, December, and you're going through February or so.
Yeah, so if you're that experienced traveler who has a lot going for you and you have the opportunity to book a contract that starts in December or even before that goes through January, and if you can try to maybe work in that time off request if they will approve it, then that'll help get you through that January job lull. Similarly, a lot of you guys who are sort of thinking like, well, I could start in December, but I think I'll wait and start in January. If at all possible, we would really encourage you to try to start in December so that you can ride it out through that January instead of waiting until January the 2nd to be like, this is when I'm going to start the job, because you'll be a lot better off. And again, just try to use some of those strategies to work around the holidays as necessary.
Yep. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments. Also, if you could like this video, send us a message. Let us know what plans you have for the holidays. Are you planning to travel at the beginning of the year, or are you working through the holidays, or what are your plans?
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. We had posted in one of our groups earlier, and a lot of people commented on there and said that they were either planning on starting a job ASAP, and a lot of people said they were planning on starting in January. So we'd love to hear from you. I know there's a lot of you out there that are thinking about that January start date. So yeah, if you can consider trying to start before the holidays, or even that little time, if you're someone who celebrates Christmas and the day after Christmas, or that, between the 27th and the 1st, if you could even try to secure a job that starts then, that'll help you get your foot in the door even before that January 2nd hits. In addition to that, we just encourage flexibility. So we've been saying this all year with how the job market has been. We just basically want to make you guys aware that this is a thing. This January job lull is a thing. Again, we don't know what 2021 is going to bring, but we can, if the past years are any indication, we can expect that January is going to be a difficult time. So if you're sitting here right now, mid-October, knowing there's no way I'm starting until January, right now I would encourage you to start planning, start working with multiple recruiters, start working on having multiple state licenses. The more flexible you can be come January when you're searching for your job, the better. Yeah,
have some money saved as well, because if you go into it with only enough money to get you through the first week or two of January, and you're planning to start a job and have some income coming in, and that doesn't work out, then you can be in a bad position. So try to go into it with some savings just in case things don't go according to plan.
Absolutely. But I think flexibility is key right now with the job market, but especially as we near the end of the year and then that beginning of the year job lull. When we say flexibility, we encourage you to be flexible in settings. So maybe if come January you're really not seeing the top jobs you'd love to take, maybe start branching out and consider taking a job in a different setting, even if it's not your ideal. Be flexible on pay. So maybe if it's not the highest paying contract in the world, again, if you get a decent job offer that starts around your desired start date, I wouldn't pass it over, because it could be, again, we waited like 6 weeks. Like, we were being picky because we really wanted 2 outpatient jobs together at the beginning of that year that we had a lot of trouble, and we ended up not starting until mid-February. Now, we knew that we had savings and we knew that we were okay with not starting till then, but had we been really desperate for money, we would have had to been a lot less picky. We would have been like, all right, I guess we'll take a sniff, that sort of thing. And as a pair, if we had not had that savings and not been willing to wait it out till February, we might have also considered the option we've mentioned before, where one of us would have taken a job and the other one of us would have held off on finding a job till later, or looked for PRN.
I guess that was actually 2019. It wasn't 2018. I was wrong.
Was it 2019?
Yeah, it was the beginning of 2019.
So it was last year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess it was last year.
Yep.
Well, no, yeah. So, but it was 2 Januaries ago, because it wasn't this most recent January. It was the January before that.
Yeah, beginning of 2019.
Because this most recent January, I was on a contract that went through the holidays, because we learned. We learned from the year before that. So that was pretty nuts. But yeah, those are some strategies that we always encourage. Just being flexible in setting, being flexible in location, having multiple licenses, working with multiple recruiters so you open up more options. Again, if you guys want any recruiter information, if you need to branch out and connect with some recruiters, we would be happy to help you with that. If you want to comment recruiter on this video, or you can go on our website at traveltherapymentor.com/recruiters, and we can connect you with some of our recruiters. We encourage working with 3 to 4, because they don't always have the same job options. Again, being a little bit flexible on your start date if possible, and if it really comes down to it, being flexible on pay, because taking $100 less a week on a pay package is way better than 6 weeks without work.
Very true.
So that's the majority of what we want to talk about in terms of end of the year and beginning of the year. And just to reiterate, who knows what's going to happen? 2020 has just been one surprise after another. So who knows what the end of this year and the beginning of the year will be like, but we really hope the job market will continue to pick up.
Yeah, we're really hoping that, since the job market was already low going into the end of the year, that and we've had some increases gradually over the last few months, that will continue, but there's really no way to know. We could definitely see a big drop off again. So better to be prepared and be pleasantly surprised than to go into it expecting things to be great and they not be.
Yeah, it's super important. We just really want to arm you guys with as much information as possible so you can be prepared and not be taken aback by this if it happens to you in January. I know a lot of you guys are going to get your hopes up and you're going to say, oh, this is it. 2021 is my year. I'm so excited. I've been waiting to start travel therapy forever. I'm going to just wait till after the holidays and I'm going to start. But we just want to let you know that this can happen. So we want you to be prepared. We want you to think ahead and start strategizing and planning now, just in case that is the case at the beginning of 2021.
Yep. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you guys have awesome holidays, no matter what you're doing. If you're working full-time through them or you're planning to start at the beginning of the year, we will be back next week with another video.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Yep.
Again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. If you got any value, if you learned anything from this video, give us a thumbs up, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.